In 1998, there was a film adaptation to Charles Dickens' classic Great Expectations. It was an okay movie. It hasn't aged very well, I think, but the soundtrack is one of my favorites of all time. It was originally released January 6th of 98, and it includes songs from some of my favorite artists of all time, including Tori Amos. She starts out the soundtrack with an instrumental from the score called Finn, which is the main character's name. It's Ethan Hawke's character, Pip, in the book.
There's a romance that's happening between her voice and his character. A lot in this film, I become the voice in, as he's a little boy, I'm the voice in his head. And so as he gets older, it's still the voice in his head, kind of reminding him what his feelings are.
There's also a new song from Tori called Siren, which was written with Patrick Doyle, who produced the soundtrack and who did the score. Now, Tori has said that the experience of recording Siren wasn't the best for her, probably because it was not within her control, as she's become accustomed to making music. But it has become a fan favorite, and it's one that's heavily requested to where she's played it many times live over her career, mainly due to the fact that it's such a fan favorite. And it's definitely one of my favorite songs. Siren would be released right before her fourth album, From the Choir Girl Hotel, which was the first one she did with the band, and Siren ended up being a nice appetizer to that album. It has some very interesting drum beats, and the piano playing, as always, is spot on, and her vocals and the lyrics are as indecipherable as Tori can be. Another song on the soundtrack was from a band called Mono, who did a song called Life in Mono, which is mainly a cover. It was one of the singles that was released from the album and probably the most successful song, peaking at number 70 on the Billboard charts and number 28 on the alternative chart.
But I can't seem to recall when you came along, all she knew.
They would later release an album called Life in Mono, which included this track. The first single from the soundtrack ended up being Duncan Sheik's Wishful Thinking, which is one of my favorites from him, and this is actually my first Duncan Sheik purchase. Although it only ended up hitting the Bubbling Under charts at number 3, it didn't really go any further than that.
That's what the song is about, is the double-edged sword of wishful thinking, or having these great expectations, because on the one hand you need them to be hopeful about life in general, and on the other hand they can get you in the end if they don't come true.
B-side of the single, though, is another one of my all-time favorite Duncan Sheik songs, In the Absence of Sun, which was originally from his debut album, Self-Titled. There's also a track from Chris Cornell, one of his early solo tracks right after he had stepped away from Soundgarden. Actually ended up peaking at number 12 on the alternative chart and number 8 on the mainstream rock charts. The song was produced with Alan Johannes and included instrumentation by Natasha Snyder, both who make up the band Eleven. Natasha is no longer with us at this point, though, so Eleven is not an active band, but their relationship with Chris would continue for his solo album, Euphoria Morning. And Natasha actually also contributed to the Super Unknown album from Soundgarden. Another rock singer who was stepping away from his band at the time was Scott Weiland, whose song Lady Your Roof Brings Me Down was also on the soundtrack, and it was also released as a single, but it only peaked at number 39 on the alternative chart.
I ended up writing the melody and writing the lyrics, in a sense, kind of around the theme of unrequited love. You know, that's basically what one of the themes of the book are about.
It's a great, charismatic, vaudevillian kind of song, very baroque, and it would also end up on his first solo album, 12 Bar Blues. This song also includes Accordion by Sheryl Crow, which I find very interesting. I just found that out. Two other singles were released from this soundtrack, including Pulp's Like a Friend. I remember seeing the video a lot, but surprisingly it didn't chart.
You are the last drink I never should have drunk. You are the body hidden in the trunk.
Along with Today by Poe, which was released between her two albums, Hello and Haunted. That song I remember hearing a lot on college radio. The Choice, KTCU in Fort Worth, would play it a lot, and I definitely appreciated them for that, although that song as well did not chart. There are further contributions by bands like Reef with their song Resignation, as well as The Verve Pipe, and a song by them called Her Ornament. One of the major highlights on this album is the song Walk This Earth Alone by one of my favorites, Lauren Christy. This was one of her last contributions as an artist before she went on to be a major songwriter and producer with the team The Matrix. It's a beautiful song that I really only remember hearing in the movie when it was in theaters, and every rewatch I've been trying to listen to it and I can't hear it, so I think for the home video release they might have taken it out or forgot to put it in. I'm not sure, but it's definitely one of my favorites from the album. There's also a song from Fisher called Breakable, which is a very soft, lovely, Mazzy Star-ish, Sarah McLachlan-ish song. I know that a lot of fans that were into Tori Amos also really got into Fisher. I don't really think they put out too many albums after that, but they did have a fan base for a while. There's also songs from some legacy acts like Grateful Dead and Iggy Pop, and the album closes out with Cesaria Evora's version of Besame Mucho, which you hear many different versions in the movie, including Anne Bancroft's character, who likes to sing it a lot. Her character is probably the best in the movie. Another highlight from this soundtrack was the major label debut of David Garza, whose song Slave was included, and this song was also featured on his major label debut album, This Euphoria.
Baby, I will be your slave. I will lie in words, I overflowed, I will be high before you know, I'll cover you from head to toe, I'll never need a word they say.
Slave is one of the last tracks on the album, and at the time, because I was so in love with everything that was coming before that on the soundtrack, I overlooked Slave until I started hearing it on the radio, and along with other songs from David, which eventually made me get his album This Euphoria and then start collecting him as well. Overall, the soundtrack did pretty good. It peaked at number 25 on the chart and would eventually go gold. It didn't exactly come and go at the time, but I think at this point it's kind of been buried by the juggernauts that came out around the same time, like the Titanic soundtrack and the City of Angels soundtrack, which I believe both are diamond-selling albums. But I really don't think that, for me, for my kind of taste, you can beat this list of songs and this list of musicians. I really hope that one day they put this album out on vinyl, because I would love to have it, and I definitely think it's worth checking out.
I mean, like
a steady boyfriend? No. You're drooling.
whisper, whisper, whisper.